Imagine Ontario's politicians promising 1.5 million new homes by 2031. Sounds almost too good to be true, right? Well, here's a reality. Kind of is. Affordable housing is also slipping further out of reach. Why? Well, sure, we've got high house costs and policy changes, but there are also hidden enemies at play, under the radar roadblocks that nobody's really talking about. And that just so happens to be exactly what we dive into on this channel. So today we're going to go beyond the headlines and break down why, despite all the promises, affordable housing remains out of reach. So, as we said off the hop, Ontario's politicians have set this big target, 1.5 million homes by 2031. But here's where things start to completely fall apart. To hit that number, we need to be building around 150,000 homes every year. That's simple math. But right now, we're projected to hit just 81,000 starts in 2024. I mean, that's not just missing the mark, it's barely halfway there. And this isn't a one-time miss. Every year, the gap between what's promised and what actually gets built seems to grow. The recent fall economic statement even lowered expectations for the next 4 years, basically admitting that we're not going to catch up anytime soon. So what's then the disconnect? Why can't we get these homes off the ground? Why can't we get them built? Sure, funding and public policy play a big part, but the real issue lies in two powerful enemies that no one's talking about. But before we get into those two enemies of affordable housing, let's first talk about the usual suspect, which is money. Building homes isn't cheap, and costs are through the roof. Material, labor, permits, they all add up. And the financing side, that's a complete other beast. Right now, construction loans come with super high interest rates. Ontario Construction News even pointed out that these rates make it hard for developers to get projects off the ground in the first place. But imagine being a smaller developer or even an individual looking to build or renovate. You're looking at crazy high upfront costs, and that's before you even lay a brick. So for many, it's just not doable, which means that they pull back and the housing we need stays unbuilt. Then there's government support, or what's supposed to be support. There are programs designed to help developers, but honestly, they're just too complicated. And applying for these incentives, it feels like jumping through hoops. So if you're a smaller player without a team of lawyers and planners, it's almost impossible. So take the Canada Housing and Infrastructure Fund's Affordable Housing Initiative. That is a mouthful, so already we can see the red tape just in the title. You'd think it would be a fairly straightforward program, but here's a program to help developers build affordable housing. But reading through it, you practically need a team of analysts just to understand which projects might qualify. And then you'd need accountants to figure out which grants or tax credits you're eligible for. So it's no wonder smaller developers don't even try. If you're not a big developer with a legal and financial team, these programs might as well not even exist. It's like we have layers of red tape designed to help, but end up shutting out the very builders we need most. All right, now we're getting into what I see as the real enemies of affordable housing in Ontario. And if this breakdown is opening your eyes to the real obstacles behind housing affordability, remember to hit like and subscribe. We're diving deeper into what's holding us back and how we can push for change. So let's get into it. Enemy number one, the shortage of skilled trades. This is something that, in my opinion, we're just not talking about enough. You can have all of the financing and permits in the world, but without the people to actually do the building, nothing's getting off the ground. Right now, Canada has a serious deficit in skilled trades. We're talking about carpenters, electricians, plumbers, you name it. And here's the thing. If you're trying to get a contractor for your own home, you know how tough it is. But imagine the impact that shortage has on big projects. Developers are putting plans on hold because they just don't have the workers. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Canada's immigration strategy has been heavily focused on students and highly educated professionals. While we have programs to bring in skilled trades, they're barely reaching their targets. Since 2015, less than 1% of all permanent residents have come through the federal skilled trades program. Less than 1%. It's like we're completely missing the mark on who we actually need. And while this isn't a politics and an immigration channel, it's hard to ignore the fact that we're spending a lot of effort attracting people for other sectors and practically none on trades, which is clearly where we need a lot of help. So I then question, what if we reallocated some of our marketing and recruitment efforts overseas to promote skilled trades? There are programs already in place like the Express Entry for Skilled Trades, but from my perspective, it seems like they're just not being prioritized or promoted effectively. So think about it. If we actually marketed these programs better and actively brought in skilled tradespeople, we could tackle one of the biggest bottlenecks in our housing market. This isn't just about filling jobs, it's about getting homes built, and right now, it feels like we're barely scratching the surface. So that's my enemy number one, but there's another barrier that's just as frustrating, and that's zoning. So let's talk about our enemy number two, zoning. This is one of those issues that's so buried in red tape, it's ridiculous. And I've got a story that sums up just how messy it is here in Toronto. So as some of you may know, back in 2023, Toronto made a big move. They passed new zoning changes to allow more missing middle housing, which is small multiplexes with up to 4 units on a single lot. The idea was to boost affordable housing options across the city, giving young families and first-time buyers a shot at something in established neighborhoods. Sounds great. The city loosens up zoning restrictions to get more housing built. But here's where things start to go sideways. Fast forward to this year. A small developer tries to take advantage of this change. They propose converting an existing semi-detached duplex into a fourplex by adding 2 more units on each side of the semi. Perfect fit for the new zoning laws. Or so you'd think. City staff then throw a wrench into the whole thing. City staff classified the project as an apartment building somehow, instead of a multiplex. So because of that technicality, the project now had to meet a completely different set of requirements. One's designed for large apartment complexes. We're talking extra parking requirements, landscaping, garbage facilities, all that kind of stuff. Things that are meant for big condos and big apartment buildings, not small-scale projects. So imagine trying to build something the city literally said it wanted, only to get hit with rules that make it nearly impossible to now build. City staff claim that since all 8 units were within one structure, it counted as an apartment building. So now the builder and his team are stuck in a bureaucratic nightmare. Costs, delays, and really just frustration all around. But then here's the kicker. This isn't a one-off case. Developers constantly get caught in these weird technicalities where they think they're following the rules only to find out the rules don't work how they were supposed to. And for smaller developers who don't have the resources to appeal or navigate endless revisions, these kinds of setbacks are complete deal breakers. So on paper, we've got zoning laws that are supposed to make housing easier to build, but in practice, the interpretation of those laws is inconsistent, and it's literally stopping new homes from getting built. And that's why I see zoning as one of the biggest stumbling blocks to affordable housing. So, what are we losing out on here? It's not just about missing some arbitrary targets. We're missing real opportunities to create affordable homes that people actually need. Oh, and another thing we didn't even talk about is development charges. Municipalities add fees to new projects, and we're talking tens of thousands of dollars per unit. When smaller developers can't handle these fees, they step back or they pass these fees on to the buyers, which means fewer affordable homes or more expensive homes for buyers. So instead of having a variety of developers creating a mix of housing options, we're left with only the biggest players who can absorb some of those fees. And the result, though, is that higher prices generally get passed down to the buyer. So the longer this goes on, the more people get priced out. And at the end of the day, that's what we're really just talking about. Real people who just want a place to live. So what happens if we don't solve this? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Less housing supply means prices keep climbing. We're already seeing it. If young families and first-time buyers can't find anything affordable, they're either pushed into renting forever or forced out of the province altogether. And it's not just about the numbers, it's about the ripple effects. Without housing, businesses struggle to attract workers, communities miss out on growth, and the cost of living just keeps going up. So clearly, the Ontario housing crisis isn't just one thing. It's an entire web of barriers. But if we identify the real issues, from funding to trades to zoning, and push for meaningful change, affordable housing could be within reach. So if this video got you thinking, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives on the housing market. And drop a comment below. What do you think is the biggest barrier you see in your community? So that's it for today. Thanks again for watching. Peace out.